In vivo.
I guess that's our new thing now, huh?
It's a thing now. It's a thing now. And that's on the spiritual tip. So welcome to the spiritual tip.
Welcome.
All right, it's Țe𝒶𝓇𝓂 and Brown, the spiritual tip.
Where we talk about some spiritual.
Shh.
Okay.
Shut your mouth. So today
I got my notes because today is heavy.
It's
meaty.
And
thick.
You could feel it in the air. And it's funny because actually before we started, we kind of
we had technical difficulties.
So
wow,
it's definitely the energy.
Happening.
And I think that the ancestors are like, all right, talk about it.
Y'all better speak on it.
Yeah, speak on it. All right, so what's the topic today, Britt?
Today's topic is surviving a narcissist.
Dun, dun, dun. So we say that lightly right now, but it's about to get deep.
Yeah. I want to talk about a few things before we jump in, though.
Yeah, let's do this.
Is that cool?
That's fine with me.
All right.
Let's do it.
I got my notes, like I said, because I don't want to mess nothing up. We have a lot of therapist friends. We have to be very mindful and strategic on what we're saying, right? Because we don't want to go around and pathologize people, and we don't want to diagnose people when we don't have those credentials to do so. Right. So there's a clear difference in narcissistic personality disorder versus people who have tendencies of narcissistic behaviors. So you have to be diagnosed with one, like the mental health thing. We don't want to create a mental health stigma.
Definitely.
Right? Okay. So I just want to get that out the way.
And also, if you are or have, dealt with situations like this that we're going to talk about, and you feel like, you have no one to talk to, me and Brittany are definitely advocates for mental health, whether you feel like you have characteristics or traits or whether you've been affected because you've dealt with somebody who you can consider a narcissist, right?
Yeah.
So yes, advocates for therapy, and that's important before we start. It's a trigger warning. It could be heavy for you. You might feel emotional. Okay, just think about it as like an ad when they tell you all the side effects.
Right.
This may cause you to purge. This may cause you to be emotional. This may make you question some things you probably haven't noticed before, and that's okay.
Our goal is for you to leave this episode, at least if you're in the situation and you didn't know that you were in the situation, because that's the thing about narcissists. They're very tricky to spot until they're not.
Yeah.
So we just want the right ears to hear this message and to see it.
Definitely.
Too. So that's our goal. We're not walking around trying to diagnose people. We're just going to talk about our experiences that we've had. And it's pretty unique because you have a different experience than I had.
I definitely do.
But all in all, a narcissist is a narcissist.
It is.
Anybody can get it.
Anybody can have the traits. So
anybody.
So let's
jump in.
Kick it off.
Yeah, sure.
All right.
So the first prompt that we had, when did you know that you were dealing with a narcissist? Or wait, let's break down the definition of narcissist first.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Do you want me to do the clinical?
Do the clinical one first.
All right, it's funny because that's what I was opening. All right, so let me do the clinical. You know when you orate, you have to give eye contact. So let me just do it how I do it. So if we're talking about a DSM-5 diagnostic criteria of a narcissistic personality disorder, okay, this is personality disorder. You can know somebody who has traits.
Okay, Nurse Yana. What's down, Nurse Yana?
You can deal with somebody who has traits, or it can be somebody who actually has this mental health issue. Now, here we go. In the American Psychiatric Association, DSM-5, okay, MPD is defined as a pervasive pattern of grandiosity in fantasy or behavior, a constant need for admiration, and a lack of empathy, beginning by early adulthood and present in a variety of contexts, as indicated by the presence of at least 5 to 9 of this criteria. Okay, guys, here's the bombs.
Oh, there's 9 of them.
There's 9, so you can have 5 out of the 9.
So if you get 5 out of 9, that probably means you're a narcissist.
Yes.
Or you have narcissistic.
Clinically. Yes.
Okay.
So we're not going around saying to go and diagnose people because, like, we don't have the credentials, and you probably, unless you are a psychologist or a therapist, you have the credentials. But if you don't, it just might hit your ears
harder.
It doesn't
you might resonate with it a little
Just don't
more.
go around diagnosing people, though.
Yeah.
So here we go. So 5 out of 9, you got to have a grandiose sense of self-importance, a preoccupation with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love.
Okay.
A belief that he or she is special and unique and can only be understood by or should associate with other special or high-status people or institutions. Mm-hmm. A need for excessive admiration. He's repeating. A sense of entitlement, interpersonally, exploitative behavior. Mm-hmm. So a good example of exploitative behavior is like somebody just picking on you in front of somebody, or just picking at certain things they may not like at that moment. It's like the wrong time, wrong moment. Also, lack of empathy, envy of others, or belief that others are envious of him or her. A demonstration of arrogant and haughty behaviors or attitudes. Haughty is spelled Haughty. All right, yeah. Wow. And that is the DSM-5 criteria for narcissistic personality disorder.
Okay. Thank you for that, sis.
You're welcome.
So now, when did you realize you were dealing with a narcissist?
So you're throwing it at me?
I'm throwing it at you.
Okay.
And, are you going to start with your story? Do you think you should start?
I'm going to do like a little backstory because I have a sister who's like about 5 years older than me. And I think she always had like a distaste for this person in our family.
Okay, so it's a family member.
Oh, it's definitely that. My take on it is familial.
Okay.
Growing up with a narcissist is more familial. And for her, she noticed it from like young, like 5. She's 5 years older than me. So do the math. And she was 5 and was like, something ain't right. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Right. As for me, I think I didn't realize until like 13, because it was like 13, 14, because it was like really conditional. I did something that he really didn't like. You know, I kind of like lost my innocence, and he just turned off the switch. Like, you never know me. So I'm not going to really state who, but you can probably get it from my story.
Right. For both of us, I think.
Yeah. So that's what it was for me. I feel like at 13, I got to see a start of it, and then it was really evident when I was like in my late teens, like 19, 20.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Did you know that's what it was, or you just knew something was off about that person?
I didn't know what it was. I just knew something was off. I just knew that my sister made a good point when because I kind of interviewed her for this, because I feel like she always had a good sense of like, I don't F with that man. Mm-hmm. And it was like, dang, like how did she, because I was his favorite. Okay. So maybe, I don't know if maybe it was like I was easier to manipulate. You know, I feel like sometimes
I'm gonna get into that.
You know, I don't know, because we were just close. So I didn't even up into my 20s there was she thought a certain way about him that I just didn't agree with.
Yeah.
You know, it took really growing through my 20s as a woman to be like, something wrong with this man.
Right.
Something wrong with this man.
Something wrong with this man.
You know, so yeah, I didn't realize I was a little older than she was, but she knew from 5, like, something wrong with this man. And going to therapy is how I kind of realized he was a narcissist. And I used to hear people tell me I was a narcissist growing up, especially after his departure in my life. I would hear that a lot. And you know, we'll get.
I just heard a crackle.
Yeah, we'll get deeper.
We got tissues today, y'all.
We'll get deeper into that later on. But yeah, so I feel like I didn't realize, because that was my friend. Like, that was my best friend. So I was like, how can you see that? But he used to bully like the two younger, like my older sister and my younger sister. I was in the middle. I kind of just flew under the radar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't know until my sister knew from young. I knew at an older age. So, what about you?
It's weird because mine comes from a romantic relationship, and I didn't realize until after I was out of the relationship. And I was in this relationship, you guys, for a very long time. A very long time. And I'm also going to talk about what you just said. Yeah. You said something about why did it happen to you?
Yeah.
Kind of. So narcissists harp on empaths.
That's
So
funny. That's what my sister said.
The more empathetic you are to people, the easier it is for them to manipulate you. So when you said something about why was it me? Why was he manipulating me? It's because you were an empath.
Yeah, I didn't.
So mine came, going back to me, mine came from a romantic relationship, and I didn't notice it until after my relationship. And the reason I noticed it was because you know how you vent to your friends
Yeah.
about your relationship?
Right.
So I was venting to one of my friends, and she was like, Britt, that person sounds like a narcissist. Now, at the time, I'm ignorant. I don't know what that word means.
Yeah.
I thought when people use that word, it's so loosely thrown around.
It is.
That when people use that word, I was just like, oh, that just means they're a jerk. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
like an asshole.
Like an a-hole, you know?
A douche.
So I'm like, yeah, he is an a-hole. She's like, no.
This level.
He's a narcissist, though.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, yeah, whatever. And then I vented to another friend. They don't know each other, but I vented to another friend.
Right.
And she said the exact same thing. So I'm like, let me do some research, because, you know, guys, I love research and stuff.
Google.
You know, don't do that for this topic, but I'm just saying that's what I did.
Yeah. Because you gotta match things sometimes.
I just gotta put a name to a face, right? So I started researching. I'm like, wow, that really sounds like what I was dealing with. But it really didn't hit me until after that. And this is years later that it solidified that it was what I was. And it was when I met.
Okay, because I was gonna.
I met a person who he was involved with. I went out to lunch with them. I know that sounds weird, but it was for a reason. It was for a really good reason.
I mean, it is what it is.
And I went out to lunch with them.
It's life.
And I sat across from this woman, who's very sweet, by the way. You could tell she's an empath as well. And everything that she was saying, it was like I was looking at somebody. I'm sorry, it was like I was looking at me years ago. And everything that she was saying was everything that I had felt years ago.
Yeah.
And not that I wanted justification, but it was just like, wow, I wasn't crazy. And that's the thing about narcissists. They can really make you feel insane.
Yeah.
And that you're experiencing something crazy.
It's true.
And that you're crazy.
Yeah. and try to make people agree with that you're crazy.
Agree with that you're crazy, yeah.
It's crazy. It's just a bunch of craziness.
It's just a bunch of craziness.
But yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that's when I found out. Like, I really found out a couple years later.
So I guess I'm going to roll into the next question for you, and then I'll piggyback off of you. But how did this person's narcissism affect the perception of yourself?
Everything.
And how long do you feel like you were able to finally break free from, you know, what that person used to put on you?
It affected everything. Everything, because it affected me on a soul level. Because the thing about narcissism and narcissists is that when romantically speaking, or even when they're your family member.
Yeah, familial too.
They don't so much break your heart, they break your spirit. And that takes longer to rebuild.
Because I got stories for that.
And it takes a very long time. So when I meet people, I feel like now my spidey senses go off a little more.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I can gauge like, oh no, I had my spirit broke before, and it took a very long time for me to heal it. And I don't got that type of time no more. So next.
Or they don't even have the capability to even break your spirit, because it's like, do you know who hurt me before?
But if I can see that you have the ability to want to do that, then it's like,
oh yeah,
no.
definitely no. And you can
and
feel
I don't
it.
care who you are.
You can feel it. It's in your shoulders.
Yeah,
You're like, you're not good for my health. You're good.
And also to add to that, the biggest takeaway from it was that, wow, I need to do more work on myself.
Yeah,
I have a lot more work to do than I thought.
Introspection, because you have these like inner wounds that you don't realize are there, and that you have to kind of like tend to and kind of heal up and close up. And it's funny because when a wound heals, it always has the capability to open up again, depending on how it heals. So it can take the wound. So it can take a little longer, and it's inner. So it's always, I feel like you're always working through it from the remnants of what that person did.
Yeah. Very, very true.
And it's hard to not repeat it in your everyday speech. You know, I read something online the other day, like a meme, and it was like, stop repeating your trauma when you speak to people. And I felt that, because I feel like I do that. Like, that's something that I tell people a lot, or when somebody's dealing with me or trying to teach them how to love me, whether it's a friend, a coworker, or a lover, I find myself bringing in my trauma. Like, well, this person did, so me, and that's like not really needed, but it's the effects of sometimes surviving a narcissist.
Can I backpedal to something you said earlier?
Yeah.
When you said that people used to call you a narcissist. So that makes so much sense, though, because you had a figure in your life, a family figure, and narcissism can be a learned behavior.
Yes.
So you probably took some traits from that person.
Definitely did.
And lived your life that way.
For a long time,
you know
actually.
What I'm saying? And even with me, when you're with a partner for a very long time, you guys can tend to mesh together.
Yeah.
And especially if you have, like, similar beliefs, right?
Yes.
And morals, you can take on what they're saying, what they're doing.
You do.
So
even if it's familial too, because you're like you look up to the person, you idolize them, right? So it's the same concept too. It's just still a relationship,
So what about you?
It affected everything because until I think recently, working through therapy and just my own spirituality. I think it, like my sisters are talking to, I think it really drove us to our spirituality because what else do you have to lean on?
Yeah.
So obviously, no, you're not, nothing's given to you on purpose, like, oh, here, I want you to suffer. But it's, sometimes you have to go through certain obstacles in life and makes you stronger and more spiritually inclined. So kind of breaking off when you could kind of see when something's not right for you or somebody's like, their energy's off. And how it messed with me was that everything I did, every accomplishment, even to this day sometimes, I think about, look at what you thought about me. Look where I'm at now. Look where I'm at now. And once again, a spiritualist that I like was like, stop using, your sad stories as the reason why you have success.
You have success because you have success.
Exactly, because I'm just blessed.
Yeah.
So for a long time, I used things that he did to me to power me to, to help level me up. I would think about the negativity and it would drive me to be positive. My dad used to say some well, now you guys know who it is, but from the story, you would know who it is anyway. My father used to say some really effed up things to me, and he would do things. My sister's story is her sister's story, and he would do effed up things to my older sister and younger sister. He would poke the bear, so you would be minding your business, and that's what narcissists do. You're minding your business.
Oh yeah. When it gets a little too quiet, and you're a little too complacent and happy.
Yeah, they
gotta make drama.
And he would definitely poke the bear. For me, my story. This is gonna be harsh for you guys. I remember, I'm just thinking about the many things that he did.
Because y'all know I be emotional.
I remember when my father, and this is just how it curbed my perception. I was always a person who lived out loud. That was just what I was. Yeah. And I think that really scared my father because I think he had a lot of insecurities, which is why he projected a lot of things on us. And,
I think so too.
So I remember him coming. I remember I was in college and he came up to me. He was supposed to give me money for my birthday, and my mom was like, "Well, you promised my child something. You gotta take it up." They were still legally married at this time. He comes up to my school, and it's funny. I was with my friends outside. They have no idea. To this day, I don't think they know. This is my Berkeley days. Shout out to my Berkeley days. I don't think they even know from this day what I went through when I broke off to go see my father real quick because he came into the parking lot. And I remember him giving me the money. It was like a bum ass $50, $60. I was in college. They ain't do nothing. And I will never forget. He was like, "Oh, you've been hounding me for this money." Mind you, I haven't really seen my dad, but they were going through a separation, divorce, whatever. Haven't seen my dad. And the first, he's like, "Oh, you've been hounding me for this money. You want this money, girl." He's like, "I wouldn't be surprised if you use your body to get money." So I was like. But you don't realize it. My dad was West Indian. My dad is West Indian. So to me, it was like, okay, he's a West Indian parent. They say harsh things.
They do. They're a little rough around their edges.
So I always attributed to that, But remember, he stopped being like real sweet to me when I was like 13, 14. He just stopped. He just got real cold, kind of like putting baby in the corner.
Not something.
Like in Dirty Dancing when he finds out she has sex with like the guy, and he's like starts being an a-hole to his. So he was a bit of a narcissist, her dad. And that was the same thing with my dad. And then as I got older, he would just say harsh things. Another time, I remember he came up to my job to be like, "Don't use my name. You're not my daughter." And I'm like, "But I was, all 4 children are from your loins."
from your
that's
loins.
crazy that you say don't use your name. You know, like I can't get away from my name. You gave it to me. So it was just little examples, but how it would change, how it curb my perception was everything. I always thought about like, oh, I'm gonna see, I'm proving him wrong. I'm proving him wrong. Look, I'm nothing that he thought I was. So that's almost how I competed with myself. It was like at his standard. So if he ever saw me again or we spoke again, it'd be like, I got every look at check the material, boo.
Right.
But what I got to prove to him is for myself at the end of the day.
And that's the thing with if you deal with a narcissist or if you have a person in your life with narcissistic tendencies, I cannot tell you exactly when the time frame is when there's a switch. But I can tell you that there will be. Yeah. Because
there was definitely a switch. It was
the thing about it is they pull you in and reel you in with charm.
Like a representative.
And charm is so superficial. And it goes back to you saying, you know, you think you were easy to manipulate. Think about
I had a soft spot for him.
Miss Edith. Think about your mother, though. Yeah. And she married him. She's also a very empathetic person.
Oh, of course.
And so he was able to reel her in with charm, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. And then...
And that's also generational, too, because, you know, it's a sensitive topic for her that we don't really discuss. But from her lineage, and she had familial narcissism, you know? And it's just funny how generational curses pass down.
And think about how that can feel so conventional to her.
Yes.
And so normal.
Yes.
Because if she dealt with it in her life growing up,
there was a normalcy.
It was normalcy.
It's a sense of normalcy for her. Yeah.
It was safe for her. Mm-hmm. Right? And if she's a person who struggles with having power, doesn't it make sense for her to be with somebody who's like, give me all the power?
But here's the funny thing. There was a switch for them. Where the switch was like with the children at different times, there was a switch with her at different times.
What do you mean?
Because he... I don't think she realized who she was because he presented well until he didn't.
Oh, I can relate.
He presented well, and they were married. He presented well until he didn't. And
there's no time frame. That's what I'm saying. There is no time frame, and it's not one size fits all for that time frame.
Somebody said they can't see you.
You know, and
thank you for that. Crazy about cakes.
Hey, and so for me, because we're talking about a romantic relationship again, right? There was also a switch. And his family, they always laugh at me because I say, he bamboozled me. He tricked me. Yeah. And they be laughing. And I'm like, no, I'm serious.
Yeah, because I didn't know.
Because I didn't know. He presented differently. Yeah. And then I want to say maybe 2 years into knowing him, there was like this switch. And me being an empathetic person as well, you want to fix a situation. Yeah, definitely. But it felt like the more I tried to fix it, the less that he cared.
Yeah, because there's never like when
there's not enough.
There's nothing you can do. There's always going to be a power. Yeah, it will always be a power struggle.
And people who are obsessed with power, they want more of it. There's
and
no
I think that's where the switch went because I grew up in a dynamic where my mom was a matriarch for a long time. And then he changed professions, and that's where the switch came in, because now the profession matched the, I guess the profession matched the level of assholeness, you know, so you gave him a sense of more power, you know? Yeah. Because he struggled with power for a long time, because my mom was a matriarch, and my mom had the degrees, my mom had the money, my mom had the cars, my mom was able to buy the houses. And when I tell y'all I don't want Tyler Perry love, that's what I be talking about. And no disrespect, but my mom, you know,
degrees
I would say
degrees on degrees,
and that's even her heart, and also her looks.
Beautiful person.
Looks, you know what I'm saying? And I was like, how did he get you? Because my daddy don't look like my mama.
That's not nice.
I mean, it is what it is. I call it spade a spade. Y'all know that all day, every day. Yeah. So, you know, I think she thought she was safe too, because maybe he's always going to be at my beck and call, because he's not like the looker in the relationship.
Oh, okay.
So it was a safety thing. Okay, he's always going to treat me well because I'm the looker in the relationship, not him. And he did present like that. He would buy the purses. He would buy the bags. He would buy the trips. He would they would go here. They would go there. They would spend time. You know, he was charming.
Yeah,
he was charming. Woo, he was charming. Definitely.
Charm is one hell of a thing.
Yeah, so that's where the switch came, is when he changed the profession, and that's when it was like, and it's funny because my mom could see things.
Yeah.
And she was like, you know, I always didn't want the career change, not to be like not to say I don't want great things for you, but it was nerve-wracking because I always knew he would change after. She said I always knew he would change. She knew there'd probably be a switch. She could see it. My mom she could see things.
So I want to say
shout out to her. You know, I'm sorry, girl, because you know it's a family thing. So you know how it goes. But somebody gonna learn from it. Somebody gonna feel felt and heard.
Somebody gonna feel this.
And we have too much of keep that in the family when people could learn from it. And I'm definitely an advocate of keeping it in the family. If it is what it is what it is.
Yeah.
And it's my truth.
Yeah.
And I was the observer, so I'm gonna speak on it. And can nobody judge me for it because we all come from some effed up ish in the background too.
All of us.
Okay.
All of us.
Transmute that.
I love it.
So yes. So with that being said, I think we covered that one, right?
Yeah,
so
we did.
It's piggybacking off of what I said. People thought I was a narcissist, and I kind of went, I had to go through my own learning to kind of break out of some of those traits.
Yeah.
Do you believe people can outgrow or no longer be a narcissist?
You know what's interesting? I did not complete that question. I didn't answer it. And it's because, the reason is because I don't know. I can only speak on, listen, I am a firm believer. Mm-hmm. If you don't know, don't speak on it.
Speak on it.
You know what I'm saying? Or at least try to find out and speak on it.
Yeah.
And for my personal experience, I don't know. Because there are days that it's better than the past, but sometimes it's not.
You can still see remnants or manifestation.
Absolutely.
It's like you can see it.
I can still see it. I don't know if people. Maybe there are. There's billions of people in the world, but I don't know.
So I feel like if you're clinically, then that's a struggle, and it's hard. Clinical wise, it's hard. Okay, so let me talk about another aspect.
Yeah.
Clinically, if you are, it's kind of like this terminology called agnosia. It's agnosia. Mm-hmm. Basically, when somebody's sick, but they don't believe that they're sick.
Okay.
They think they're fine.
Yeah.
So somebody who has who has any personality disorder, or even is bipolar manic, they don't sometimes, or schizophrenic. Sometimes they have a godlike complex and don't think there's anything wrong with them. So, with that, I'm trying to say that when you say you are a clinical narcissist, I think it's hard for you to break out of that because clinically you are a narcissist. So how do you really know to go get help to not be that way? Now, if it's something that you just happen to grow up with, kind of like me, not kind of like me, I think I had a lot of narcissistic traits for a long time.
Right.
And I'm not going to lie, I think I just came out of it like in the last year. Shout out to the 12 House because I'm wrapping up old programs.
Love that.
And I think that for a long time, that was the way I protected myself, was these narcissistic traits. And I could never really be vulnerable because, there was an insecurity of love. Because if my dad did me that way, how can all you guys do me that way? I'm just going to move like this all the time. And you model what you see.
Yeah.
And I thought for a long time he had effective ways of being to be strong, especially like as a black man, But then it was unhealthy because you just switched. It'd be different if he was still around and I could see how it really affected his life. Even if my parents were still not married, I could see how he could
switching.
But he can't love me if you're I know he's a narcissist because you can't even love me through that.
Yeah. But because, so the switching is a common trait that they do. And the reason why I think that the contact is less with you is because you don't stand for it.
No.
Anymore.
No. That was clear.
Right.
That was clear
they thrive off people who are empathetic and can see them and meet them where they're at. You can't do that because you're like, nah, that's some bullshit.
I already know you.
I know you. That's some bullshit. So
next victim.
Exactly.
They're always moving. They're like Rolling Stones too. So that's something else to know is that
they cling on to the next person who can make them feel better than them. Yeah. Or better than
or feed their ego.
Yeah.
Feed their ego because they have really big egos, unhealthy.
I also want to mention that there's no assigned gender.
No assigned gender.
Okay? No assigned. So you could be
I'm very transparent.
Woman, a man, he, she, they, a tree. I don't care.
This just happens to be our take on
asshole is not a gender.
No, there is not. And for a long time, I think that's what my sisters and people around me would be like, yo, you're an asshole. And I'd be like, that's your problem. And that's such a narcissistic thing to say where it's kind of like, well, what makes you say that? And like, well, what else can I, not even what else can I do, but how can we kind of put out that narrative that I'm an asshole, and I don't want to be seen as an asshole. And that's somebody who's not narcissistic, may have a trait,
right?
But they're not narcissistic because they're empathetic to like, you know, I didn't know I made you feel that way. I'm sorry, you know, like.
And that's the clear difference. When you have somebody who's willing to get professional help to change, okay, let me be more compassionate. I can tell there's an issue between me, like my relationship dynamics. Versus somebody who refuses to think that there's anything wrong.
And that's how you kind of know.
And you guys, I just want you to know, it's not your fault. If you're in these dynamics, it's not your fault. But I want you to know it's always going to be a losing game. And if it's always going to be a losing game, you'll never win that game. But if this person is willing to get help, that has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with you. And then maybe...
And amen to that person for getting help.
And amen for, if it's not a ploy.
Yeah, and short-lived. Because sometimes they could just do it for a little while just to keep you quiet, and then it's the same. They don't learn anything. It's back to the same. It's back to the same behavior.
Right.
Or make themselves look like the victim when you guys are in sessions. Maybe you go to therapy.
Right.
You sit in sessions, and they make you, you know, because honestly, it's anybody's game when you go to therapy. They don't really know, but if you present well.
Exactly.
Then they're going to be like, well, maybe you're the problem. And you're over here like, am I crazy?
Right.
So it's very, it's just a tricky game.
Until it's not. Until it's not. But that's why I want to get away from gender roles and assigning it to like narcissistic traits and behaviors and patterns, because if somebody's belittling you and they're trying to get something on behalf of your expense, I don't care what gender they are. They're an asshole.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
A-hole's a-hole. So, you want to take up the next question?
Where we at?
So we are on number 4.
All right. Whew, I can't wait for you to answer this question.
Okay.
All right. How does your trauma from that person affect you today?
All right. So
I feel like you kind of touched on it.
I kind of touched on it. How it affects me today, though, I think today, present. Let's talk about present day, me walking around and kind of navigating the world and proud of my success. I feel like it's a beautiful love story. It's a beautiful, like, love tragedy story.
It's bittersweet.
Yeah, and it's like a familial love tragedy and kind of like just, it's a story that I know that I went through. And it just made me stronger. And it also made me appreciate the beautiful people in my life who choose every day to love me.
Yeah.
And I mean, even people who don't have any blood link to me. I've had a lot of people who have links to me bloodline-wise do a lot of effed up shit to me, because I was going to say the F word real hard. I've had a lot of people from my bloodline do a lot of effed up things to me.
Yeah.
And how it affects me is how I can see who really loves me. Like, I know who loves me and chooses to love me. Yeah. It's a choice to love. It's a choice to love somebody. So I'm very appreciative. Even people who are like aunties to me that I didn't even expect to be a part of my life. You know, I'm grateful.
Yeah. Because
I get to see that, wow, you really love me, because you don't have to love me.
Right.
And there's no blood linkage, because let's keep it real. Just because there's blood doesn't mean nothing. No, and I'm a testament to that. Let me tell you something. I've had water treat me way better than blood, and that's on God. Okay, and that's on Mary Had a Little Lamb, and that's on the spiritual tip. And anybody who's watching this and knows the lineage and knows where I come from, they know what I'm talking about. Okay, so that's what it's taught me. How it affects me today and present day is, wow, I know love when I see it. And I know love for me and love for somebody, and I just wanted, I do it opposite of a narcissist. I'm everything a narcissist is not. Yeah. And I'm a testament that you can grow out of it.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
So that's on that. And yeah.
That's on the spiritual tip.
So we've been through some things, but you got to smile through the bullshit.
Yeah.
And that's what makes me happy about this today. Like, despite the struggles or despite what you went through emotionally and mentally, you're here today and you're doing this and you're transmuting your story.
Absolutely. I think that's my answer, is that I just have a story to tell.
Yeah.
I have a story to tell, but not
On the
only do I
mic
have
with it.
You know what I'm saying? Not even that I just have a story to tell. I can now pick out people who are good for me.
Yes.
People who are healthy.
You know how
for
to
me.
choose.
I know how to choose now. I know what's worth my time and what's not worth my time, because I wasted a lot of years that I cannot get back.
And
You know what I mean?
can I also piggyback what you just said? You also too, when you have people who also have just been in your life, maybe they've always been around, and you start to see certain traits from them, you're like, you know what? I know what that looks like, and I don't want
to deal with it.
I'm good.
Absolutely.
I'm good. And you know what? I've known you for a long time, but what we got? Just time?
Just time.
So peace out on that.
Yeah.
And it's been great. It's been a great ride. I know how I want to be loved.
Right. I know how I want to be loved.
And I know how I don't want to be loved.
Yeah. So that's my takeaway from that. That's how I navigate the world now. And I'm just more appreciative of people who are genuine.
Genuine. And warm.
You know, because I feel like I can put that out into the world, and sometimes people play on that. Yeah. And so when people don't play on that and they generally just want to be around you and they like you and they want good for you, I can appreciate that a lot more now. The water's not so muddy.
Yeah.
I can tell the clear difference between somebody who just wants me at the expense of what they can gain versus somebody who just genuinely wants me.
And spiritually, how did it affect you?
So spiritually, it's funny because I feel like my whole spiritual awakening was a huge chunk of that.
Yeah, girl.
That experience was my spiritual awakening.
You up. It shook you.
I'm gonna tell you a story.
Story
time. At the end of our relationship, towards the end anyway, I was living with this person, and I'm gonna tell you how God works, y'all. How my God works. Woo. So I had just bought my iPhone, and for some reason at the Verizon store, I could not get my iPhone working. And the guy who sold me the phone couldn't get it working. He's like, you're going to have to go home and set it up. I said, that's fine. I'm going to go home and set it up. That's fine. I couldn't make calls out. I couldn't make calls. No calls were coming in. I went home. My partner's iPad was still at home. Yeah. So I could make calls out that way. Yeah. When I called him, he was at the gym. I was like, I need you to come home because I need to call the Verizon store, or Apple rather, so I could fix my phone. He's like, all right, I'll be home. He comes home. Right? He's pacing back and forth. You know when somebody's just, like, not comfortable? Yeah. Because I had to use his phone. Yeah. He just wasn't comfortable. So he's pacing back and forth. He comes out of our bedroom back into the kitchen where I am with his coat still on. I was like, you want to make yourself comfortable?
Yeah, you
live
right.
here.
You good?
Take it off. Stay a while. He's like, well, how long you be on my phone? I'm like, well, you knew what I had to do, so what's the problem? So I'm on his phone. Promise, hand to God, was not going through this man's phone. Not doing that. But I'm clicking on his phone. Don't know how it works. I click in the middle of the phone. A whole bunch of apps pop up. Bink. Right?
One you're not looking for.
Wasn't looking for it. Didn't ask for that. But God has a funny way of throwing a pebble. And then he throws a rock.
Amen.
And then, if you don't listen, he's going to throw a brick.
Say it again.
Okay? Pebble, rock, brick.
He really does do that.
Yeah.
I be telling people,
there
catch
were
those
a
signs.
lot of red flags from the beginning, and I just never really noticed them.
Yeah.
My dynamic is so unique because a lot of people who went through relationships that were narcissistic didn't have the same kind of dynamic that I did. Yeah. There was like a religion part of it, and he placed people in this hierarchy so that if you were a woman, you didn't matter as much. And so that everything that he did was justified.
Yeah, didn't hold weight. How you
right?
felt.
So I click on the app, and unfortunately, his messages pop up, and I see him talking to somebody, right? And I'm like, that's weird that you're talking to this person like that. She don't know you like that. You're not even like that. You don't even get that like that.
Yeah.
So what you lying? So anyway, I left the house, right? I went to my friend's house. My phone's not working, by the way. The whole ride there, it was like a 40-minute ride.
Right.
The whole ride there, so I couldn't call her to tell her that I was coming. I get to the house. Obviously, I'm crying. Yeah. And she's like, come in. I'm like, my phone doesn't work. I told her what happened.
Right.
And she's like, you sure your phone don't work? I'm like, it doesn't work. Child, when my phone start working?
Won't he do it?
But the kicker is before I left the house, when I confronted him about the message, this is how they respond to stuff. I said, who is this? He said, you went through my phone. That wasn't smart.
Ooh, girl. That hit my back crazy.
That's crazy.
That hit my back crazy. It's like, what so don't forget, hold that thought.
I'm not going to forget. It's embedded.
You have to be careful. You also have to be careful with people who have narcissistic traits or narcissists, because sometimes if you have special disorder, they could kill you and not give an F and keep it moving.
Yeah.
And think there's nothing wrong with it. They could be a sociopath as well. Yeah. And that's a whole other discussion.
So that was part of my experience, my spiritual
awakening. And if you were scared that's a scary thing to say to somebody.
Yeah, because I looked at him like he was crazy. I was like, what do you mean that wasn't smart?
What does that mean?
That has nothing to do with what I'm presenting to you right now. And so that's when, he would switch on and off like that.
Yeah.
And that's a scary thing.
That is.
So if you have somebody in your life who is easily, like, they can switch on and off like that and not have any empathy towards how you're feeling, that's a problem.
That's definitely a problem.
That's a problem. So it heavily played in my spirituality. I always say, when I tell people that story, that I walked out of the house and I came back that night, but I never came back the same.
Yeah. Oof.
Because I left.
Yeah.
Mentally, emotionally, like everything. Excuse me again.
Let's go, little kitty cat. It's time to go. But
so, yeah,
I think, and I love that for you, because it was like you can like stamp it and know when it happened for you.
Yeah.
I think that for me it was like I went through waves of my spirituality, like my spiritual awakening. It was like waves. Like
I feel like I go through waves too. Even now,
I feel like I was protected through a lot of it because I was doing some. Yeah. I always tell people, and they always think this is crazy what I say to people, I feel like spiritually, I was always spiritually, I feel like I was inclined spiritually, but it was more of a dark aspect. Mm-hmm. And I think I ran with the dark because it was easier. It was low vibrational. I think it kept me protected. Okay, I was in my masculine energy, kept me protected. So I think that I always knew if I act this way, I'm still gonna get what I need to get. Mm-hmm. But at some point, there was a switch. I think, like I said, nursing school really changed me. So I think that's when it really, like, my spiritual awakening, when I found about everything that has happened to me, because you incorporate everything. Body is body. Mm-hmm. It's mental. Mm-hmm. And nursing also gets into, like, you get into the dynamics of how everything works in the body.
And in the mind.
And how it connects to the body. So I think that's when spiritually, because I had to start pulling on things that made me felt grounded. My crystals. Thank God for my sister being already inclined at the time. My older sister, and even my Marilyn was dabbling a little bit. And thank God for that.
Hey, Marilyn.
And Aaliyah, thank God for that, because she kind of helped me to really hone in on my spirituality. Yeah. Because I had to think about all the things. Sometimes I would study and my trauma would, like, affect me. Like, people don't know that. I would study and I would, like, think about everything that people said to me and the negativity. Like, especially it came from my family. So it was my dad. And I'd be studying and I'd be doing my questions and it would be with, like, kind of like Bates Motel, like Norman Bates, like his mom's in his head, and and I would just get to it, and I'm like, okay, I got these people in my head telling me I can't. I'm gonna get through it. I'm gonna do it, and I think for a long time that's how I succeeded.
Yeah, well, it really played on my self-worth. I'll tell you that.
Yeah,
because I remember I got into an argument with my partner at the time, and we were together, and I had just had. Well, now y'all don't know, but I just had my son, and I said something like, "Oh, I'm leaving you," or something like that, right?
Right.
And he looked at me and he said, "You have baggage. Ain't nobody gonna want you." And I'm like, "Wow, that was very harsh for you to say to somebody who is very hormonal and just had a child." That's crazy. That's crazy to me. And so when I presented it again later on, maybe like a few weeks later, when we, like, reconciled,
right.
I said, that hurt me that you said that to me. Mm. But there's no empathy from the other person if they have narcissism in their soul, Right. So when I presented that, like, that hurt me, there was no "I'm sorry." And you know what? Now that I think of it, I can count on one hand how many times he actually said sorry to me.
Because they usually don't say sorry.
Wow, that's a download.
Ooh, they said the sound is out.
That's okay.
It doesn't. Yeah. Gotta catch Sunday, guys. Next Sunday at 10. Maybe that's spirit because we're giving out a lot of information, but
Ooh,
yeah,
that's a good one. Yeah.
So that was good. What you just said. So.
Yeah. So empathy. They lack empathy, and then there's a sense of entitlement.
Yes, and that's a big one. Sense of entitlement.
That's a big way you can spot a narcissist a mile away. Is their sense of entitlement.
Yeah. Yeah.
Over sense of entitlement.
And they just feel like, well, you affected me. You did it to me.
Because they have a distorted sense of reality.
Like, how dare you do that to me?
And they can really reel you into their warped reality.
Definitely.
And have you doing things that they do. I'm a testament to that.
I know that. Yeah. Because I think for you too, your experiences that you experienced it it's so funny how you talk about adolescence. It's just a vital time, your 20s, and if you don't work through the things that are given to you, right, the things that you need to learn, right, it can affect you negatively,
heavily,
and
negatively impact me.
And this goes out to people who think they can't right now. It's true testaments, and there's two different angles.
Yeah,
this is relationship, and this is familial. And if you feel like you've been affected by it, or you feel like you may have those traits, and you feel like we're being a mirror to you, and that's like what it's meant to do.
Yeah, you might want to check your relationships then.
Check your relationships. And it's very subtle. It starts subtle. It starts very subtle.
And then there's a switch, and you're like, am I insane? No, you're not insane.
And
what they're doing to you is insane.
They always show type of tendencies, and sometimes other people can see it better than you can see it, but you don't want to hear it.
Preach on it.
Okay? It's true, and it sends up red flags for other people before you, because they already roped you in, because they know, all right.
And you can't see it anymore.
No, but it's almost like when it's almost like when they're dealing with you, but somebody can see like the demon that you're dealing with.
But that's, what else they tend to do is that they can seem very passionate and empathetic to other people and other situations in your life. But when it comes to you, they don't have any of that.
Because that was my experience.
They don't have, that was mine too.
Woo!
They don't have any of that. And so it's like, what's wrong with me? So then what's wrong with me? Why can't you give me the same that you're giving this person and that person? Yeah. And it really makes you question your self-worth. But it's not you.
It's not you. It's
not you, babe.
I think even that, he used to look good to the world. I would have people be like, oh my God, you're so-and-so. You're like, he's so sweet. And I'd be like, for real? Because I don't even talk to him. So that's so nice that you had an interaction. He was all warm to you, because I don't even know what that is at this point in my life, So, and then even me, I think to some people in my family, maybe like some of my siblings could have been like, sometimes she was nicer to everybody than me, or even maybe people I dated. Maybe they thought I was nicer to the world and more mean to them, And those are traits of narcissism. It is. So, Yeah,
I started tearing up a little bit.
So but
y'all know I'm a thug. I'm gonna say it again.
Yeah. Oh God. And everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, I'm gonna turn off the live because y'all gotta catch
y'all gotta tune in. So this brings us to, we got some time. So I think I really want you to, because familial, I think it's harder unless you want to go get. Unless after all your experiences, you realize after this conversation, man, maybe I need to go to therapy, kind of to unpack this. Because I'll be honest with you guys, I didn't realize that my sister would say it, but it was stamped and delivered when I went to therapy.
Stamped and delivered. I love that.
When I went to therapy, and she was like, he said what to you? He did what? Mm-hmm. That's not normal.
Yeah.
And it sounds like he has a narcissistic personality disorder. And I was like, wow, my sister used to say that.
Well, yeah.
And I'm like, but my sister, she's clinical therapy
she's always been about
roots.
That life.
Yeah. So I was like, wow. My sister said that. She was like, well, that was insightful. That was smart of her. So she had the right code already, And that's when I was like, wow, I survived a narcissist.
Yeah.
So my next question to you, and I feel like because relationship, I think, is so common and people don't realize it. Familial, I won't say you can't really prevent what family you're born into, but you can definitely work through the effects of what you've been through in your family.
Yeah.
And that's for you to do. Nobody should make you feel bad about doing that, because we also have cultural issues sometimes in our family where they're like, don't tell people, don't go to therapy. Talk to somebody, because it's important.
It is
especially
important.
if you feel like it's hard to work through. Now, my question to you is, what are some red flags people should look out for to determine if a person is a narcissist? Talk to them.
All right. I wrote all this down because I feel like it's very important and we miss them. And then when we look back retrospectively, it's like, wow, that was a red flag. All right. So, like I said in the beginning, we're not going to diagnose people, right? But it is okay to spot red flags and acknowledge things that are harmful to us and our mental health and our emotional state, right? So we can decide for ourselves after that if we want to keep cultivating a relationship with that person. So self-centeredness.
Yep.
An exaggerated sense of self-importance. Obsessed with power or beauty.
Oh my God.
Believe that they are superior and can only be understood by other special people. That's that hierarchy.
It's like that criteria.
Entitlement issues. And the unwillingness to acknowledge other needs and feelings of people.
Yeah, because they don't care about your feelings. They don't care about your needs being met at all.
So if anybody displays any of that in any of your relationships, that's a problem, and you need to make it known. And then if they don't acknowledge that, then you know what to do.
Yeah.
You know what to do.
Yeah. What's a good, like, if somebody was dating somebody and they're like, he seems a little like he's trying, but something's off, or my friends have been telling me like to look out for, blah, blah, blah. What is something, like an example of something that's a red flag when you're dating somebody and you can see it's like there's a little narcissist?
There's so many to choose from.
I know.
So like I said, my dynamic is a little different. So my answer may be a little different for people.
Or maybe somebody that you dated that you recognize, you got a little narcissistic traits, and you were like, I'm piecing off out of you.
I would say, this is a good one. When they cannot when they cannot compliment you about anything other than your beauty. If they can't compliment you on how you are as a person, how you think, how you speak, your goals. If everything is surrounded by looks, that's probably an issue.
Okay. Ooh.
That's probably an issue. And to think about it, in my last relationship, wow.
Little remnants. That's how it starts. Honestly, I'd be trying to tell people, like, that's really how it starts, when they start talking about your appearance.
And just your appearance only, or body parts, at the expense of other women. Like, I like this body part because it's better than Sue or Mary. That's an issue.
Or why don't you dress like this because that's what I like?
Yeah.
Or do your hair like this because that's what I like?
Or they do these little brainwashing techniques where they will exaggerate their liking for something. Say you wear weave a lot, right? And they keep talking about, well, I really love women with natural hair. I really love women with natural hair, right? That plays over and over in your mind. Of course, you're going to want your partner to think that you look good.
Right.
So then you start transitioning to be natural.
Yeah. It's a slow transition, but you do it because you want to. Ultimately, when you're an empath or you're just a loving person, you want to make your partner feel like, not like you're listening to them, but like, I value your word. I value your word. I value your opinion. I value your perspective.
Exactly. That's where it gets tricky.
But at the same time, they're beating you down and you don't even realize it. They're beating your spirit down. You don't even realize it. Right. And I be trying to, some of y'all women out there, I be like, ooh, that sounds a little off. But, you like it. I love it.
Yeah. What about you? What would you tell? What would you tell somebody that they should probably look out for certain things? What kind of things should they look out for?
Well, I will go from mine. I'm kind of probably for me. I would think like, if your needs can never be met, like no matter what, you can never please their needs. It's always like, oh, well, that's not enough. That's not enough. That's not enough. Then something's wrong with that. I think it's going to the empathy too. Kind of like, well, that seems like it's a you problem. Then I'd be like, what the. Like, oh no, like, or no validation. If you cannot validate people's feelings, I think that is a red effing flag. And when I say I don't mean like, oh yeah, I know you're mad. When they like wait for you to get over it, they don't really, and you talk to them about it, and it's just like, okay, Sorry.
Like, they can justify that you feel a certain way. Like, I can see why you feel that way. If they can't do that, that is a problem.
Yeah, and that's a big red flag. Because nobody's right. We all
have
and
our own
nobody, and it's not about
opinions.
being right. It's not about being right or wrong. It's really just about, you know, understanding that person and feeling and
having
and being
empathy.
empathetic. Like I was about to say, being empathetic.
Yes,
You
took a
know.
word right out.
Yeah. So there's that, and
Yeah, wow.
I feel like it's definitely affected the way I date in a way, because I think because I had this like narcissistic traits, or I was raised with somebody with such narcissistic traits, that I ended up dating people who kind of were like more into their feminine and masculine, and they were masculine, but they like sat into their feminine more, where it allowed me to kind of like really demonstrate those traits, you know? So that's also another upside to it, you know? And I mean, another perspective of it, of who you date, who you choose, you know? So
it's interesting that you said that, though. I'm just going to say something because I wrote this down, because masculinity in our society typically holds those kind of traits of narcissism. But I do want you guys to know that masculinity is not equal to narcissism.
No, it's
like
definitely not.
Like I said, like, anybody could be a narcissist and anybody can get it.
Anybody can get it.
And don't feel special that you were in a relationship with a narcissist. They're everywhere.
Everywhere.
And they just...
Your coworker, an auntie.
They're everywhere. They're everywhere.
Okay, on the TV, you can see it. So it's definitely examples everywhere. That's for sure. But on a lighter note, you know, don't be a victim to your circumstance.
Right.
You can work through it.
And getting out feels so good.
And getting out feels good, and then it sometimes leads you to another pathway, and you didn't even realize
does.
it blocks for so long. It blocks your blessings, and once
It
you
does.
remove it, you see what comes into your life, the abundance that comes to your life, the prosperity, the peace. I think that's
the peace.
I think that's the biggest takeaway.
I'll be where the peace resides.
Where the peace resides, and I think that's the biggest takeaway from surviving a narcissist. Ooh, it's a download. That's the biggest takeaway from surviving a narcissist, is the contrast of chaos into peace.
Wow, I love that.
And
I like that.
You know, I'm getting emotional. Nose is burning. And I think that's the beauty of it. I can see the contrast and like, wow, I'm blessed. And look at the things I worked through.
I could do, even though you said I couldn't.
Through the adversity.
Yeah.
You know, and through what they projected onto you, and you didn't become any of those things. So that's a beauty to that. So
cheers to that.
Cheers to that. Thank you guys for hanging around with us. And I don't know. You have the time? We got some time? Because I need to talk about. I want to talk about some black. Oh,
I don't think we got any more time, sis.
all right. So
it's a very meaty topic, you guys.
Yeah.
And we could go on and on about this all day, but you got the gist. Those are the red flags. If you notice them, you know what to do with them now. I hope this hits somebody's ears that needs to hear it.
Yep, and it's the spiritual tip.
Yeah.
Akina and Brown, the spiritual tip, where we talk about
some spiritual
All right. NBC Home Care. Check it out. It's on my teeth. Love you.
It's on my teeth. Love you.
Peace out.